And of course, there are codes that MSPs use, like picnic, for example. In fact, you, Sophie, are a classic picnic.
Oh, God, what does that mean?
Paul Green's MSP Marketing Podcast.
Another Byte.
Hi, I'm Sophie Law and welcome to Another Byte. This is the YouTube show for MSPs if you want to improve your marketing and grow your business. Every week we delve deeper into another episode of the MSP Marketing Podcast with its host, Paul Green. One of the things you kicked off the podcast with this week was talking about triage. I like how you tried to sex it up a little bit, imagining all of those customers and clients that are coming in. It's like a busy A&E. You're Dr. Green. That's a 90s ER reference for people who don't know. And you're trying to figure out who is, the most injured, the most important, the most needy client. Is it a case of white coat and stethoscope on every day, or do you need to hire a specific person to do that for you?
That's a good question. The dispatcher role is such an exciting role because it not only does the triage, but it makes the clients feel special. And I think that's half the problem with the emergency rooms have and that doctors have is in being triaged. You've sat in a hospital waiting room for 5 hours with a child with a pea stuck up their nose. I've done the same kind of thing, and at the time you feel like you're not being looked after very well. But of course, if you were actually the person that's just had a heart attack that's getting all the medical attention, you're glad that you've been bumped ahead of the queue. I think all MSPs triage to a certain extent as they're going along. I think the point at which you've got enough capacity to say, right, well, let's invest a little bit in our communications. Let's get this triage person, let's get this dispatcher person, and their key, only really 50% of their role is triaging. The other 50% of their role is empathy. It's something I'm lacking, actually, is empathy. I've been told by various girlfriends and wives over the years.
Ooh,
but that's
no comment.
That thing of
and former employees.
Yes, I was going to say, yes, you're neither a former wife nor former girlfriend yet.
Thankfully.
But the hello, is that HR? I forgot what I was talking about now. I've completely lost my train of thought.
Empathy, dear.
Empathy, yes. So is the whole, my printer's broken. We all know at a technical level, broken printer is the least important thing ever. Even if you've got to get that important document done, it's just not as important as, we have no internet access. It's not as important as many other things. But to the person on the phone at that point, it is the biggest thing in the world. And that's the communication skill of the dispatcher is empathy. Oh, I'm so sorry you're having that problem. Let's see if we can get that fixed for you. And then it's setting expectations. And I think that a dispatcher role is more communication than anything. And the story that I told in the podcast about when I had to call the police last year, and the control center person was doing, as I look back now at it, the control center person was doing as much managing me as they were managing resources, because the reality was the issue I had was clearly not important enough for them to dispatch a police car immediately. And so they were kind of, without saying those exact words, they were just sort of talking me through it and trying to talk me through the situation. And it was looking back, this is what they're trained to do, but it was a communication masterclass, really.
And also, can I get a triage person for my own personal life to go through my email inbox, DMs of social media, and just anyone I don't want to deal with on the phone?
Well, you say this. It's called a virtual assistant, Sophie, and I have, and I think I've mentioned it on the podcast before, but I have a virtual assistant. I have someone called Sam, and their job is to read my emails so that I don't have to. So genuinely,
bear that in mind for next time I email you. I
certainly
would.
This is why we WhatsApp, because no one reads the WhatsApp except me. But I'll get 50 to 100 emails a day, and lots of marketing lists and bits and bobs. But Sam's brilliant, because Sam will, let's say an invoice gets emailed in. Well, Sam knows that I don't pay the invoices. So Sam will look at the invoice and we'll move it to a folder. So for when we do the payment run, all the invoices are in one folder. Sam also knows that if I get an email from one of my MSP Marketing Edge clients, that is something that I want to look at, unless it's a very basic support request. If it's, can I have an invoice, then Sam will send that off to the support team. Whereas if it's a marketing question, they'll flag it up for me to answer. So I go into my email twice a day, literally first thing in the morning, last thing at night. I've got like 7 emails. It's brilliant. So yes, you can triage everything except children. I think children, you have to deal with yourself.
Which brings me nicely on to acknowledging problems. I'm kidding, of course. I love my children. Acknowledging problems when when there is a problem and people really want to be acknowledged, and as you were saying, like even though you can't fix it right now, you want them to feel like that can be acknowledged. Is it ever a good idea to have like a code? For example, when my kids bring me their art from school, my husband and I have a code. We'll file that under B, which means we'll bin it. We'll put it in the trash.
Yeah.
Is it a good idea to have a code, like maybe if you need to speak to another person on the phone, or is it just about that kind of empathy, about making them feel valued, but getting them off the phone because it's not going to happen instantly?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And of course, there are codes that MSPs use, like picnic, for example. In fact, you, Sophie, are a classic picnic.
Oh, God, what does that mean?
Let me tell you what it stands for. Problem in chair, not in computer.
Wow.
PICNIC, and you're technologically one of the least capable people I've ever spoken to. Don't be offended, non-intended. It's just a fact.
It's also true. I'm sorry. I'm about
true.
Bringing the talent. I'm not about fixing the wires.
Yeah, exactly. We know medical doctors do this. They have notes, don't they? If you're a hypochondriac, where you have all the illnesses, they have codes that they put on, and they do it. It's not as unclever as picnic, because picnic is a basic acronym. They will, I don't know what it is, but it will be a code 74D, and all doctors in a healthcare system will know that 74D means hypochondriac, and it's their way of passing it on in a way that you will never know if ever you access your own medical notes. So, should you have a code? Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think a lot of MSPs use the traffic light system. Rather than having a code, you can share the traffic light system with the client. And this might be part of the empathy to say to them, hey, look, when we get problems here, we grade them. They're either, red, which is urgent and needs to be dealt with immediately, or they're yellow or amber, which means they need to be, they're serious, or they need to be dealt with after the red tasks. And then they're green, which means they're really annoying, and they need to be dealt with, but we have to do the red and the yellow first. And so you're almost... There are other ways of doing it, but that's almost a way of explaining to the user at the end of the line how you've triaged it and why they're not going to get their printer problem fixed in the next 10 minutes.
All right, another thing I wanted to talk to you about was the jobs you don't like doing. So for me, any kind of phone call, and it's not because I'm not confident, I just hate the phone. And I think it's got worse as we've got more kind of into Zoom calls and emails and messages and socials, that you don't have to pick up the phone and have the conversation. So you were talking this week a lot with Mark about how to attract clients, and maybe not going down the LinkedIn or the Facebook route, maybe looking at your own website. Edutainment was a word you used that made me a bit, but also cold calling. Like, cold calling is a thing. And what if you're rubbish at cold calling, or you really hate it, Paul? Like, is there a way around it, or do you just have to suck it up?
Yeah, so everyone hates cold calling. I have met perhaps 4 people in my life who enjoy cold calling. One of them is
all in jail.
No, they're not. They're all nice, normal people. One of them is an MSP called Kevin, and I hope Kevin's watching this because he knows, because I've acknowledged to him a couple of times that he's not normal. Kevin's a lovely guy. It's an unusual skill set for an MSP to be happy to just pick up the phone. There's a guy I interviewed recently who'll be on the podcast in a couple of months' time. His name's Brian Gillette, and he's the best a man can get. And he is
a great name.
I know. It is actually his name. The best a man can get it was the advertising slogan for Gillette razors in the UK in the 90s. I don't know if it was in the US, but anyway, he is a cold caller for MSPs. So that's what he does for a living. He picks up the phone and he calls people, and which is kind of insane. So what
a job.
I know, but he loves it. He thrives on it. In fact, as you'll hear him say in the podcast interview in a couple of months' time, he gets off on getting results, and he's got a really good script which he's going to share with us. And the script actually tackles head on that this is a cold call, and it essentially said, I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's something along the lines of, "Hey, not going to lie to you. This is a sales pitch. Do you want to give me 30 seconds to talk to you, or do you want to hang up now?" And as you can imagine, the majority of people are so sort of stunned by that they actually stick with it. They hear the 30 seconds, and he's got a very clever little engaging thing, which we talk about on that future interview. But everyone hates cold calling. So a step up from cold calling is warm calling. Now, warm calling is only 2% away from cold calling. It's not.
And
It's
I'd
not
never
like
heard that before. I don't know if a lot of people know what warm calling is, because I'd never heard that before.
that's a really good observation. So, warm calling is just where you've built up a level of relationship, and cold calling is where you Google, I don't know, lawyers, Los Angeles, of which there's 10 million, and you just work down the list and you call them. That's cold calling. So they don't want you to call. They don't know you, and it's cold. It's horrible. It can get results, and people do get results from it because it's the numbers game, and the numbers game, to a certain extent, works in marketing. But it's just not pleasant. I don't recommend it to most people. But warm calling is a little bit different. Warm calling, you're connected on LinkedIn. They might even be in your email list, and they might have seen your LinkedIn newsletter that's gone out, or they might have seen a post that you've sent out, or maybe even you've exchanged a message on LinkedIn or something like that. So there is a very basic relationship. Now, when I say a relationship, it's a very low level relationship. All of us as humans are driven by relationships. The reason that you and I can have fun on this kind of interview is because we have known each other for it's well over 20 years. And we've worked together for a couple of different times. We've stayed friends for a long time, and that allows us to jump on a video like this. And we've got a sort of a safe boundaries of a relationship. No, I'm not. I'm just being nice. Being nice. It's my contact lens. It was my contact lens. But that relationship has built up trust between us. So I might be funny about tell a joke about you, but I'm not being cruel. Most of the time. Whereas you ring someone and you're connected on LinkedIn and you once had a message, it's 2% away from cold calling, but that 2% can make a difference. Now, it doesn't actually make much of a difference to the outcome of the call or the way in which they receive the call. It makes the difference to how you feel about it. And this is the hardest thing for any business owner, MSP or not, is actually picking this up, pressing the buttons and calling 20, 30, 40 people today. It's horrendous.
Yeah.
I've done it. Most business owners have done it. And most of us, the second we don't have to do it, we don't do it. I have now a guy called Ben. In fact, we have two. We have Ben and we have Vanessa, and we have a whole telemarketing company that do all of these outbound calls so that I don't have to. But here's the thing. If I lost it all tomorrow, so if the business crashed and burned and was destroyed tomorrow, and I had lost my entire revenue stream, obviously I'd have a few days to get over that, have a few beers, recover. But then, do you know what? Monday morning, I would, whatever it was I was going to do with my new venture, because there's always a new venture, I would pick up the phone and I would call people.
Yeah.
And I would do that Monday, all day Tuesday, all day Wednesday. And do you know what? By Wednesday or Thursday, I would have some money.
Yeah.
And without even knowing what it is I'm going to sell, I know in that desperation, I would pick up the phone and I would do it. And every business owner I've ever met would do exactly the same thing. So I think what happens is the reason why we don't like doing cold or warm calling is we get to a level of comfort. And once we can pay the bills and we can pay our staff, the comfort, cold or any kind of outbound calling is so horrible that we have to be really uncomfortable to do it. This is why actually the answer, Sophie, is to hire someone else to do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
And
that works with all areas of life, I find.
No, it really does. So I'll tell you some stuff that you don't know about me, because we haven't physically met up for a couple of years because of COVID and stuff. So since you last saw me, I've moved house. I have a gardener now. In fact, I have two gardeners. I have Warren and Mick, and I say this with no shame, because I like gardening. I know it is a bit fancy. I like gardening. However, I don't like losing 4 hours of my weekend, because we've got quite a big garden here, and it's a really nice garden. The previous owners left it perfect, and under my stewardship, I didn't want it to become not perfect. Mm-hmm. So I hired a gardener, and essentially, I would rather, in fact, this sounds awful, but they come on Thursdays and I work from home. And some days it's quite nice. I just stand here at my desk and I just look out and I watch, other people digging my garden. So
you're pretending you're in Downton Abbey again, aren't you?
Exactly that. Haven't quite got a butler yet. That's coming. But the point being, it's always better to hire someone to do something that you don't want to do. Mick and Warren have been doing gardening professionally for 20 years. They're always saying to me like, "Oh, your buddleias, budding, or and I'm like, what? Do you mean the
Yeah.
pink thing over there? That I was going to cut that up and throw it away.
I'm totally the same.
Yeah, exactly. So
in fact, I put a flower on Twitter the other day going, anyone, guys, what's this? And had about 20 replies instantly from very helpful people telling me it was a hellebore.
I thought you were going to say it was a daisy or a dandelion or something.
Not that ridiculous. No. But yeah, do hire someone else to do it unless you're hiring me. In the 1990s, when I was a student, I got hired by a marketing firm to call France and Germany and try and sell them magazine subscriptions in French and in German, which was a mistake from the start to even admit I knew a tiny bit of it. And it was almost always their lunch break. So it was very awful.
That's a horrible job.
Long.
See, that's a cold calling job, isn't it?
Yeah,
and I bet the
totally.
numbers game there for the magazine company was that if they had 20 Sophies dialing 20 times an hour, then they sold 3 subscriptions an hour, and a lot of it. I mean, MSP sales, it's not as clean as that.
Yeah,
but we're trying to. It's a hell of a lot more complicated, but we're still just trying to get the first meeting, and that's the goal of the call is to get the 15-minute video call, which the owner then jumps on with. So the owner hasn't got to press any buttons. The owner or whoever does the sales turns up, does a great sales meeting, has a 20, 30, 40-minute call, books a sales meeting, and bang, you've got another client eventually.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
All right, that's just about it for this time on Another Byte. If you do want to go and check out this week's podcast, I can recommend it. Number 123, easy to remember, because my favourite new code words, Paul, that I learned were, is it a Monday morning problem or is it a central heating problem? I'm going to be banking that one for the future and definitely using it on my husband. So make sure you tune in to Paul Green's very own MSP Marketing Podcast, and we will see you again very soon.
Paul Green's MSP Marketing Podcast.
Another Byte.